Hey everybody, I haven't posted in a couple of days. I need to pick up some parts from a friend of mine, from John Gray. He's former mayor of Oshawa, Ontario, Corvair collector, and he's big into, as you're going to see, fast Corvairs, as fast as Corvairs can get, but it's fast-ish Corvairs. And he has a Yenko Stinger. It's a Corvair that was modified by Don Yenko in 1966. There's a whole bunch of information on the internet about them. His is one of the first 100. It's YS Yenko Stinger YS063. That's kind of significant. So I did a little walk around at his place because he had some parts for me. He had an exhaust manifold that I needed for, or sorry, a crossover pipe that I needed for the C-Can coupe behind me here. And I needed the peg for my shift fork for my wagon, for my 62 Corvair wagon, because I'm going to end up posting a video on it, but I'm pulling the engine out and doing the clutch swapping from early model clutch to a late model clutch, mostly because I'm having issues one way or another with the clutch. It's very firm and it's not doing what I think it should do. It's not operating correctly. So while I'm there, I'm going to swap to a late model clutch because I have all that stuff. I'll probably post a video showing the engine removal of that in that 62 wagon, but right now here's a video of a walk around of John Gray's Corvair Collection. It includes a 66 Yenko Stinger, a Corvair race car, a 66 Corsa coupe that's hanging from the ceiling, which is interesting, and a Corvair Ultravan motorhome, Ultravan 222. Also a 69 Corvair, the last year of a Corvair, that has air conditioning, and it's modified to be a Fitch Sprint. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy, and please, if you feel like you'd like to see more content, please let me know. Let me know what you want to see. It's hard for me to keep track of everything and look after all the stuff that I'm doing and doing videos as well, but I'm working on it, and it's going okay. I'm very happy with the amount of subscribers we now have, and the views on some of the stuff. So please share and subscribe if you want to see more content. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Hello, John.
Hey, Ed.
This is John Gray, and John Gray is going to tell me about some of his Corvairs.
Absolutely, Ed. Well, come on in here. This is one of my pride and joys. It's 66 Yenko Stinger YS063. I got it in 1999. It came out of New Jersey, and my old friend Pete Kaler helped me get it. I had told him for years I wanted one. They always slipped through my fingers. Well, this one didn't, and that's why I still own it. So I've done the complete resto on it. I enjoy driving it, and it's very comfortable. I did not put in stock seats. I wanted to create a very stock image of a Yenko Stinger, but there's always a few things I've got to do differently. A rear deck antenna. This car had a front antenna, and I hate them. It's got to be a rear deck, so I put that on, and the glove box, on the glove box door, that is just supposed to be a regular sticker. I've got the probably some Yenko emblem from the 70s on it. A minor, no body work changes, of course, but it attracts lots of attention. And of course, a Yenko just has a bit different to drive to it. It just oozes high performance, and I'm very, very pleased to have it. Bob Donahue out of Iowa, he was the one who turned me on to the Flowmasters, and that creates a very unique sound. Doesn't sound like a Corvair anymore, almost. So just those little things that you do just so that we can have a great deal of pleasure out of our cars. So I've got the Roger Parent linkage on it. Of course, the better plug wires from Seth. Polished alternator, got a little crazy one winner. and polished up an alternator. And boy, that was a lot of work. And but
Looks good.
You'll see that this is an American car. American cars did not get, they got painted black in here. The body shop that I use, I've got them so trained on doing Canadian Corvairs that he automatically sprayed it white in here, thinking that's what I wanted. I thought, oh, darn. Same with the trunk, although I was able to spatter paint the trunk. That's the only thing that's really not conveying a stock image as far as the inside the engine compartment. And I think the other reason why the black works better, the fiberglass for the deck lid was actually not a high-end piece that Yenko put on the cars. And if you paint it flat black, as he did, you know, you wouldn't see these same flaws.
Yeah.
I didn't want to over-restore the deck lid, but by the same token, I wanted it to look better. So if you'll notice, the finish here is much better. If you ever look at a Yenko Stinger, it had some pretty awful fits. So I had the body shop do some alterations just so the fit looks better on this deck lid. The aftermarket deck lid, which I'll be able to show you on the 69, they use in fiberglass, but they use the standard deck lid for the interior side. You won't see all that. It'll look much more finished than that, is when you look at it.
Yeah.
The other
and
thing
those
I
flaps
did,
obviously open.
yes they do. I don't have the magnets, and one of these days I just got to take a few photos of some other guys' Stingers and just get the right kitchen magnet that they used. It was just, this strip was a little more flat, and it was the magnet that held it open. You'll also notice Yenko had to use a ground wire. And my experience with these deck lids, because I had another Corvair that actually had a Yenko deck lid that he got out of City Chevrolet in Hamilton. He was the dealer here in Ontario for Yenko. So what I did, I noticed how flawed these things are. I actually cut out of a rusty deck lid the metal piece, and I just made a little hole here, slid it in, gelled it into place, did both sides, and on the to make this license plate light work, I actually took the metal piece out of the rusty deck lid. It's in behind here, it attaches to here, and so when it closes on here, we have a ground. You know, obviously Yenko couldn't do that because he took production cars, made a few changes, and that would have been just too time consuming, I think. But that's how I covered off, because I thought that little green wire coming out of here just looked ugly. So I thought, well, we'll just do it a little bit different. You know, and it's just, sometimes we have to make our improvements. It's absolutely mandatory.
All right, John, so tell me about this Stinger in particular. I know there's different stages of Stingers.
Yes, there is. This car was, I think, a stage 1. I don't have the paperwork on it. I've never been able to track down the original owner. I speculate that it comes out of New Jersey from its inception. Charlie Durge, who is also a very well-known Yenko guy, he had found me an ad from 1970, and so we believe this car, and it was at the time being sold as a 67. Well, this was titled as a 67, which tells me that this was probably one of the leftover Yenkos that turned 1967. Yenko wanted to sell it, so he just simply called it a 67. And now I've changed that back. I like that. This is a 66. Let's call it a 66, and it's one of the original 100. But I believe, and based on that ad, I believe this car was a stage 1. It certainly had a telly column back in the day, which got robbed out of the car, which is no bother to me because I don't like the things, and I prefer just to put the stock Corvette wheel on. And if you get the hub for the 66 wood wheel, and most of those wood wheels are cracked and useless, but just drill out the rivets, and you can put on the Corvette wheel, which I think looks much more tasteful. But stage 1 was basically, he called it the 160 horse version. Really all he did was put headers on it, an oil pan, and air cleaners that really just kept stones out. That's about all they could do. You know, a little wire mesh. But that was stage 1. Now stage 2, he started to get into the heads, did some work in the heads, fly cut them, gave it some extra compression, and he called that the 190 horse. And then you could get the all-out, basically 220 horse stage 3 engine, and that would have been primarily for race use. I don't think it would have been very nice to drive on the street. But
so this one is what you would call a street stinger.
This is definitely a street stinger. Some of them had the back seats out. I don't know if mine came with a back seat or not. I put the back seat in just because when the kids were younger, they used to go for drives with me, and it was easier to have a seat in the back.
Yeah.
You know. But you'll see a variety of stingers. Some have back seats, some are carpeted over. But certainly well known to be very quick off the line in comparison to other cars. This guy in the club that actually did buy a 1966 Corvair. It was modified out of City Chevrolet. They were the dealers for Yenko Stingers, and he can tell you some stories about shutting down some other big V8s, and it was quite a shock for people. Now, I don't tend to have any antics on the street. I prefer to do that on the track, but yes, we had some capabilities there.
Yeah, and you've had this car autocrossing quite a few times.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a picture in the house with the right front wheel being lifted, and that was a fun thing. It's a little unsettling. You hear the wheel come down again. You think, oh, did I knock down a cone? No, you didn't. Just the wheel coming back down. Yeah. I tried to buy that from Tony Phelps back in 1997. And that was back in the day where we didn't have all this instantaneous information and videos and things like that. So he sent me a VHS of the car because he bought it brand new. And he sent it to me. It came on a Friday. I didn't look at it right away. I took Sunday morning. I finally put it in the VCR, played it, liked what I saw, called him, and he said, "There's a guy you missed it by 20 minutes. He just left." And that was Paul Fox. And to Paul's credit, he took things off, like the master cylinder. I guess he couldn't recondition it. They put another master cylinder on, and it's still a wrong master cylinder on your car, Jay, if you ever watch this video. But that's how these things keep slipping through your fingers. So if anybody wants a Yenko Stinger and they see one that's available, don't snooze, do it now, and you'll get it. If you don't, it'll slip through your fingers until I learned that lesson. But the guy and Paul, to his credit, he drove it for many years, and his car is photographed with some of the other Yenkos around, and then he finally sold it to Jeff in California. And Jeff was the guy who did the excellent restoration and sold it to Jay Leno. And the one thing, Jay, you still got to do, you got to have wedding band style tail lights. You've got the wrong tail lights on your car. Now, I don't want to be critical because it's a beautiful, beautiful car, but change your master cylinder, change your tail lights, and you will be that much closer to, the epitome of Yenko Stingers.
Okay, John, we're at the front end of your car now, of your Yenko Stinger YS063.
So the thing I'll point out is the unique master cylinder. It's the 1965 Cadillac master cylinder with 4-wheel drum brakes. Big heavy Cadillac with 4-wheel drum brakes.
Yeah.
So that's unique to the Stinger. And then one of my custom touches was the split bumper, sort of the 66 Corvette theme. So I have that on there too, and I thought it is very nice. It goes with the stripe. And I can't project an absolutely stock Corvair. It's not possible. I have to make some modifications.
Yeah, we have to personalize.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. So just those little things, very tasteful, and yet if somebody in the future it falls into their ownership, they can always put an absolutely stock bumper back on.
Yeah, those are very nice, those split bumpers. So that's the sail panel. Tell me about the sail panel.
Sail panels. So this is another thing that Yenko did to make the Corvair, his Yenko Stinger, a little more unique than just a stock Corvair. Now, tip to anybody, this panel, when I got my Stinger, this had been removed. They would start to do some body work. So I didn't know better. So this is just attached where I thought, well, yeah, that looks, the spacing here looks good. This has got to be right out almost to your molding here. Otherwise, you can't get the weather strip, and the seal to fit right, and which means also the glass.
Oh, it won't go up all the way.
Is not good. So someday, when I want to do a touch-up or two on this Stinger, I'm going to have to take this off and have it reblown in. And the other thing many of us do now is we do not, Yenko just body filled this in.
Yeah.
And we found that there's a lot of cracking right along here because your filler, of course, is going down into this area here. So what most of us Yenko guys do now is we just put this in with seam sealer.
Yep.
Very sanitary. It looks like it should be there, and it just makes it better so that you're not getting this darn cracking. Once you start driving it, you can tell if that Yenko's been driven a lot because it's going to have a lot of cracks in the body filler. And a lot of us too are just, we don't want a lot of filler in our cars.
No.
So eliminate the fill, a little bit of seam seal, and it's much more sanitary, yet still creates that Yenko image.
And these seats, they're Porsche front seats?
Yeah, those are Porsche. I think they're 924 seats, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, I was mentioning on the dash, that should actually be just the Yenko emblem, this, which is another explanation in its own. So the camera can't show this, but this is a raised decal in here. Really should be black, is what the first batch had. Then I think Yenko had another batch run off, probably a second and third batch. The second and third batch would have been a decal like this, but not black. And then the other ones became black, but they weren't raised. So one of these days, one of the guys has reproduced, Ed Canine has reproduced the correct emblem.
Yeah.
And so I'll acquire some, and when I do this project. But right now, I just don't feel like
ripping the car apart.
But the funny thing on this one, you notice how light blue this is?
Yes.
That's because it sits in the garage. I've got windows in the garage, so the sun shines there. And so with time, it's faded the decal.
Yeah. And then you've got the rest of the interior is just stock 66 Corvair back seat.
Yep.
And door cards.
Yep.
Very nice. And then the Corsa instrument cluster.
This is the correct color on my... it's hard to say to somebody, oh, your stripe's not the right color. Yenko, when he got these 100 cars, he had to farm them out to as many body shops as he could. I know my car was done at A's Auto Body in Canonsburg, PA. The reason why I know that is Mark Gillespie published a book, and in it he has a copy of the invoice for the number of Stingers that particular body shop did in that batch. Well, guess what? 938's in there, and that's the last 3 digits of my serial number on this Chevrolet VIN, and so that's why I know it was done at A's. Anyways, when we sanded down the car, we scanned this color, and that's how I managed to put this blue back on. Because otherwise, I've seen some marina blue and some various shades of blue, but this one I know is correct for this car.
So this is just a nice little 64 coupe?
Yeah, it's just a recent acquisition. Little 64 coupe, originally from Oklahoma, and the guy that bought it, he had taken a trip down to Oklahoma, brought it back. He was an older gentleman, and then had some health issues. And basically, it's been sitting for a number of years in a barn, and you can tell because the interior was just mouse poop city. It's not as bad a smell anymore. It's improved a lot, but I got the seats out, and they're happily airing out outside. But it's a really solid car. It was originally a 110 automatic with air conditioning. And so, not a usual find around here, certainly, but very solid.
Okay, John, so this is tell me about this roof on this 69.
So this is a Fitch roof. vent top, as we often call it. The previous owner was really liked the vent top, so he went with the vent top, and but then he went with the Yenko stripes. Personally, on a Fitch, I do like the Fitch color code of lighter color on the bottom, dark color on top. And so if I decide to sell the car, obviously I'll never do this, but if it is something I'm going to keep, and I've got a number of other late models in my stable, then this will go Fathom green on the bottom, and Fathom green on top, and the frost green on the bottom. And the nice thing about this car, somebody did a meticulous job of installing stock Corvair air conditioning, a la 1967. That was last year we could get air conditioning in a Corvair. And he installed the Corsa dash, which, if you look across, becomes quite an appearance item. So if you look in there, the AM/FM multiplex, the additional instruments underneath the multiplex, and then just the dash, the center air vents, and I just think it's just an outstanding look.
Yeah, the Corsa dash with the air conditioning is very neat.
And the wood wheel.
Yeah, that's a beautiful wheel.
It's just a gorgeous looking interior as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's a 69 with the high back buckets.
Yeah, as you know, I drive this all the time in the summer.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't hesitate to drive it to conventions.
It's pretty much your daily on nice days.
Yeah. It doesn't go outside in the bad days, but just I wanted to. It's getting a little wet, but I wanted just for you to get a better shot of what's inside the shop here. So
you were talking about the deck lid.
Yeah. So here's the deck lid. Now, just show you the comparison. So when you look in here, this looks like just the stock
it's finished,
steel.
yeah.
So it's got a better finish. And the previous guy, Sean Fox, he's the one who came up with this little setup as opposed to the magnets and the strips.
Yep.
Which I thought was quite an ingenious little innovation, actually.
And it's a 140 4-carb.
140, yeah. When I guess the third last owner, when he built this car, it was he built it as a Fathom green 69 with these features, and his idea was to create what would be a stock 69 Corsa. So that was his vision, and then the guy he sold it to had the Fitch vision, and
everybody had their own little.
Everybody's got their own, and
own take on it.
And I might just have to, do something different just to say I'm different.
Just to put your mark on it.
Yeah, but
and it's got the painted bumpers.
The air conditioning works so well in this thing. It blows really cold. It impresses the heck out of me, actually. And when the previous owner did this car, he made sure that it was an air-conditioned 140. So this is the stock engine that came with his car in 1969, correct serial number block, but he used the spacers to get the compression down.
Okay.
And so it works. I mean, this car may look fast, but because it's been detuned for the air conditioning and producing less heat,
it's a comfy cruiser.
It's a comfortable cruiser. Yeah, I can get stomp it down, open up those secondaries, but it's not as crisp as a 140 would normally be.
Okay.
140s and 95 horses are my two favorite engines in Corvairs.
I agree.
The 95 is the smoothest. Don't have any trouble if you get some bad fuel. They still seem to keep purring right along.
Yeah.
And of course the 140 is for horsepower and fun. It's nice out in the open road.
And the sound of the secondaries are opening is very nice.
Yeah, getting that additional CFM sucking into the intake.
So John, tell me about what else you've got going on here.
Okay, so first thing you'll see a number of engines. This engine, I just had it running the other day. Don't know when the last time it was ever run. It came with that 64 that I purchased, and it had when I first started up, a little rough. I think there was a stuck valve, and it's smoothed out. And of course, I had shot some oil down into the cylinders just to make sure you don't break the rings. So for the longest time, it was huffing and puffing when it was running, and that was a bit disconcerting, but I had it running for about 40 minutes. The smoke cleared up, and for the most part, the little mist that it had has gone way down. I think my speculation is that there's a valve, an intake valve in there somewhere that's not quite closing, and it's on the left bank. So I'm going to start it up again on the weekend, let it run for another 40 minutes, get a few heat cycles into it, and that's usually all I need to do to get a stuck valve loosened up. If it worst comes to worst, I can always take the head off. Yeah. But I found a little bit of perseverance. I remember the first time I ever had an engine with a stuck valve, I took it out. It was a 140. I took it out for a good honking run and a few downshifts, and then boy, the stuck valve was eliminated.
Opened right up.
But you need that heat and that fresh oil circulating around. And behind it is the never-ending project called Ultravan 222. My wife and everybody's taking bets that this will never get finished. Well, hopefully they'll never see our video, but I'm going to prove them wrong. It's just I haven't been able to get motivated. When you buy a project and you didn't take it apart, it becomes an extra set of problems, and a lot of stuff has been lost. Yeah. I didn't lose it, but it just simply didn't come with it. And so I will, in fact, on Wednesday, the tanks are going in for the welding. I did try to weld my own aluminum tanks, and I found that the quality isn't there. It's not a good weld that I was doing, and I don't need porous gas tanks. If the fresh water, gray water, or black water leaks, I'm really not as concerned, but I don't like leaks, period. So I'm going to take it into a guy, and hopefully he can steer me in the right direction.
Okay, and is this a 66 as well, John?
Yes, so this is, when I did over the Yenko Stinger, I was going to use it for some track events, and I thought, this car is too rare and too valuable for me to take any risks. So I picked this one up and redid the body, and this is what I use for track purposes, autocross, and you know, it's getting a little rough around the edges, you know, a few pile-on marks and things of that nature, but that's okay. I get to have fun with it, and I don't beat up any other Corvair.
And you've got the single carburetor on it, the 4-into-1.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like them, but if they're set up right, you know, it seems to work just fine. And then up above, I've got a 66 Corsa. This one is actually built in Oshawa, and Oshawa being the home of Canadian Corvairs, I had to have one. And so I picked this up. I've sandblasted it, and probably in about 3 years' time, based on all the projects I've got on the go right now, I'll be able to delve right into this one. I've got the floor pans and the tunnel supports and everything like that, and I'm just in an acquisition mode right now. You just slowly, you see something, you buy it, and you just squirrel it away, and then great things can happen when you go to do your project.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
You're very welcome.